Why don't businesses make as much money as they should? It's because they don't have the right backing. You can't do everything yourself. You can't have all experiences. You need to surround yourself by people that have experiences themselves and learn from those people as well so that you don't make the same mistakes. You need to bring in the culture rather than just talk about it from a people perspective. You need to understand the existing culture and where the culture that you're trying to bring them to is.
One key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
You can't do it yourself. Surround yourself by not just a team, but people that are actually doing it.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show. I'm your host, Athin Cassiotis, and today I have an awesome guest. His name is Craig Keegan, and he does dental roll-ups, M&As, demergers, and is a podcaster and mastermind host. And he solves your problems, massively reduces your expenses, and makes you millions of dollars. And he has 25 years of M&A integrations across health and manufacturing, including two $1 billion M&As. And he spent decades in IT and project management, allowing him to make things happen and get them working. And that is his superpower. And he works with people and teams across the globe to coordinate a desired result, provides practical and beneficial outcomes for his clients and partners. Welcome, Craig, and thank you for being on the Business Growth Show.
Well, thank you, Athan. After that, I think I should just walk away. I don't think I can live up to all of that. That's pretty impressive.
Thanks, mate. Definitely a great intro. I like to give some energy to it as well. And I'm sure it's going to be an amazing show for us here today. And I was recently on your podcast as well, which is great. And now I'm able to get you on mine and get all into, a lot of your knowledge to share, with my audience here today. And you are a successful entrepreneur. So for those people that know who you are, just introduce yourself by telling us a little bit more about you and your journey.
Well, like anything, it hasn't been a straight line. There's been lots of curves. The entrepreneur journey really started about 2003. But that's just the start. You've got to go down different ways. And I've done property, creative property. I'm able to list organizations on the secondary stock exchange, small scale share issues, conveyancer, mortgage broker, all of that sort of stuff. But I do like making a difference, and mergers and acquisitions and roll-ups. Roll-ups in particular are such a creative and building thing that it really does excite me in how you can change people's lives and businesses' expectations. I always describe what I do as being the dream maker, because you make the dreams of the founders, you make the dreams of the employees, because you give them so many more opportunities doing roll-ups. And of course, you make the dreams of the investors as well. So I always that's how I describe it, as I just make people's dreams come true. And that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome, mate. I think that, it's always amazing to give back, right? And make other people, become true, something outside of ourselves, which is amazing on what you're doing and finding that area that you really love after, we go down this road of life. And I guess, for everyone maybe that doesn't know, M&As are mergers and acquisitions, but roll-ups, I know what they are, but I'd love to hear it from your perspective, Craig, being here today, just for those people that aren't aware of what a roll-up is first. You want to just share that with us? Yeah.
Absolutely. I have to go back to M&As first on that one, because I've been doing M&As for 25 years. And what that is that's taking little brother and bringing him in and joining him up to big brother. And I describe it as being a template with a hammer and chisel to chip off all the edges. I have been the hammer and chisel, and I've chipped off all the edges and got rid of the waste. A couple of years back, that all changed when I came across roll-ups, because roll-ups is a different one in that it's building rather than hacking things off. It's growing things. So in essence, what you do is you get a basis to work from. And in my case, I'm doing dental roll-ups. So I'll get a basis of 3 or 4 practices, and then you do add-ons. You find other practices that want to join up or other businesses that want to join up, and you add them onto that. But then you also get bolt-ons as well. So instead of just dentists, you might have the manufacture of dental plates as well is a good bolt-on. They're not a part of the dental practice, but they are a vendor, a supplier. But one of the key things is IT. IT for dentists. Who would have ever thought that that's a thing? But when you go to a medical facility, what you'll find is that there are specialist IT companies out there that just work with health and doctors. So they are known as a bolt-on to a roll-up. So then you package it all up. A single practice is worth, let's just make it easy, $1 million. You put 10 practices together, it's not worth $10 million. It's worth more like 25 million, because the bigger they are, the more rare they are, the more valuable they are. My plan with all of mine are to put 30 together. So instead of $30 million, it works out to be $136 million based on the different multiples of the size of the group together. But behind that, you'd better have good systems, good processes, good standards all the way through. Otherwise, you've just bought yourself a whole heap of trouble and a lot of lost money and a lot of lost time. But that's where you come in, isn't it? Because you know the processes and how to build good businesses.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Yeah, I love it. And yeah, systems are one of my strongest points and so important, right? As we grow, and systems have to evolve as well, right? As the business gets bigger over time, because certain systems, as you're smaller, don't necessarily support the business, especially when you're bolting on, 30 companies together, putting them all together, as well as all the suppliers and all the other elements, which is, yeah, it's a very powerful strategy there. And to go from 30 million, let's say, if you were going to buy each one, to 130 odd million, right, as a valuation is massive, right? $100 million profit exit, is considerable.
It's a dream maker, isn't it?
Definitely.
That's what it's all about. It's about making people's dreams come true.
Amazing. And let's talk a bit more about the dental roll-ups here, right? Because I guess we could do a roll up in a lot of different types of industries that's possible. So why dental, and tell us more about it. Yeah.
Well, the reason for dental was this is a story in itself. I didn't know what to do. I have worked in health for probably 15 years in one way or another. I've worked for ambulance and hospitals, and I've done M&As on hospitals and things like that. So health is something that I know, but I didn't make the decision. What I did was I went off to my lender and I said, what will you give me money for? And they said, we'll give you money for health. I said, what about dental? They said, yep. So then what I did is I went off to my private equity company. It was actually 9, by the way, but for the convenience of the story, we'll just say mine. So went off to the private equity company and they said, we'll give you money for dental, or we'll take a dental roll-up. Perfect. So now I had my front end sorted, I had my back end sorted. All I had to do was the middle bit. But there was a catch. There was a big catch. I went to put my name on the finance form this Thursday evening. Little red light came on in my forehead, Athin. Something wasn't right. And that little red light, it doesn't get any smaller. It only gets bigger over time, because you're going to be married to these people for 5 years minimum. So I walked away and thought, okay, how do I do this without any money? So by Friday lunchtime, the next day, I put a plan together got onto my mind mapping software, and I drew out a plan on how to put 30 dental practices together without buying them and without any money. So There's
Right.
always a way. Sometimes you have to step back and say, no, this doesn't feel right. And you have to be brave enough to do that. And that's what I did.
Yeah, amazing. One thing, couple of things that I'll note what Craig said there, right? Obviously, Craig's got a health background, right? Like you've worked in the industry for a while, so people will be like, there's less risk, right? Like, you'll make it work because you have some knowledge there. So it makes sense if you have
And
some.
I've got teeth.
Yes, that's right. That always helps as well. Knows how to brush his teeth, long term, in that way. So it's like understanding a domain, right? There, or having someone, maybe it's a partner that understands that area, right, is important. I think when you're moving into certain industries. So he had the knowledge there, and you also trusted your gut, right? Like, which is massive in business. If something doesn't feel right, then it's probably not the right thing to do. Like you said, of going down that path.
And to support what you're saying there, you're right. I didn't have the in depth knowledge. So what did I do? I went out and recruited the right knowledge. I went and got myself a dentist. However, I went and got myself an entrepreneur dentist that had 2 practices already that I could bring on board. So I'd instantly built my core at that stage, and I got in depth knowledge, experience that I personally didn't have. But there's another trick to all of this, Athin. Why don't businesses make as much money as they should? And I'm talking any business at this stage. It's because they don't have the right back end. They don't have the right pillars to support their business. So a dental practice, what does it need? Same as every other business. It needs marketing, finance, HR, payroll, accounting, IT, property. It needs all of those different pillars. And the reason businesses don't succeed is because they haven't got all those pillars covered and they're not at the optimum for each of those pillars. So the thing about Rollups is, where do you add the value? You've got to add value. Size is not enough. Systems and processes are great, but you've always got to be focused on the value. The value that I add is building those pillars to the same level for every single practice. And to do that, I had to go and build a business called the Shared Business Group, which is an outsourcer for dental practices for all of those pillars. And that way, they come on board. I can look after them. I can grow their numbers. I can standardize them. And I can make the babies look good for when we want to exit, because they all look alike. All their numbers are good. And we can give holistic numbers as well for private equity or for whoever wants to buy practices. So that's the secret sauce.
I love it. You saw an opportunity going, well, we need to make this efficient. What's the systems that we need to do? And it's like, well, we can plug this in. You basically create another business there.
I did.
On it going, okay, well, it makes it good for those businesses. The business can make money, but also it actually helps the whole grand scheme of the roll up and the exit, right? At the same time. So it's amazing, right? So this is, I'm just deep diving into Craig's thinking here, right? It's like looking at the opportunity going, well, this is the problem. People don't know how to run the businesses properly. So what if I can provide how they run the business there, right? For everything. And if you niche, it's easier, right? Like in a particular industry, like you're doing with dental, because you can really tailor it to them as well, instead of, adjusting things, and then, maximize it for that perspective.
That logic works. For your Australian guests, you will have come across an organisation called Chemist Warehouse. I worked at the Chemist Warehouse. Now, their overall company was never called Chemist Warehouse. It was called AMS, Advanced Management System. And under that, they had 4 or 5 different businesses. But that AMS business was all the back end. They did all the marketing, they did the accounting, they did all the legal stuff. Oh, Athin, I regret to say I stole the idea of Chemist Warehouse, which is now what? A $12 billion company?
Amazing.
So,
There's a saying that I've heard. This saying like good artists copy, great artists steal, right? Which is an interesting saying there. I'm sure but it's modeling, right? It's like in
It
coaching,
is.
mentoring, you're
And
modeling
I've
what
just put it
works.
out there for your guests to model off that as well, because there is enough of the world out there that we can all have a piece of it. But do it right. Because when you're doing a roll up, you're dealing with people's lives, you're dealing with businesses and their business, you're dealing with vendors, you're dealing with a lot of people's lives. You need to be doing it right to make sure everyone is safe and going to succeed. We don't want anybody to fail.
Yeah, amazing. And I like that, you're also thinking outside the box in terms of how do I do this with no money, so to speak, right? Like how do I partner with people or whatever that is? So you're not just going down the traditional route, you're looking for alternatives, which I think is really powerful too.
Well, a funny thing happened on the way to work. Oh, I work remotely. Anyway, funny thing happened on the way to work 2 months ago. I got chatting with someone over in the US, and it was a really good conversation. And I got back to them the following day and I said, hey, we need to talk again. What I'm doing here in Melbourne with the dental roll-ups, I said, I've drawn up a plan. You can do it over there in Dallas, provided they've got teeth. So, well, of course, that's not going to work in Collingwood or South Sydney, is it? Because they obviously haven't got teeth. We're in Dallas. So what happened there was I drew up a plan on how this can be, for the sake of a word, franchised, licensed to another city. And just last night, I was dealing with someone in Ireland talking about doing the same thing in London. So I can very much foresee that in the next few months, I'm going to move out of my role in Melbourne and move into a global role and doing these around the globe.
Yeah, it's amazing. And this is the power, right, of that. Don't just succumb to your environment or the country that you're in or the state or the city, whatever it is like that. You got to think bigger out there, because Australia, I think the stats was 1 to 2% of GDP or something of the world.
Yeah.
So, we think we're good here, which we have a great country, but we're actually very small in the grand scheme of things. And you have the two biggest other countries, especially America, obviously, is massive, the US there. And then you've got, English speaking, I'm saying, US, Canada. And then you've got obviously the UK as massive markets as well on top of ours.
I went and tested this. I said, I drew up this plan for Dallas. I went and tested that plan with industry professionals over there. It failed. Why? Because I hadn't accounted for what you just said, the scale. The scale was totally wrong for what I'd put together. And I had to then go back and remodel it for the appropriate environmental factors. And that scale was the key. The concept worked, but what I drew up was never going to work because it was too small.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at this as well with the business that I'm working on. I can't say too much at the moment, but it's like, yeah, you think like this and you're like, actually, it needs to be 10 times bigger than this or whatever, right? For actually it to be a viable thing that they're actually interested in, depending on who you're speaking with, especially if there's an investment part, right? Like people are in there because they want something that's going to become material, right? So you've got to sort of get outside your zone and get someone to actually make you think bigger, yeah?
But the other point is you need to always go and test these things as well. And people, you said before, masterminds. Well, I've just set up 2 mastermind groups, one for dental and one for business. By the way, I love what you're doing with your side of the things with the business, the podcast, the growth that you're doing with your company is just fantastic. But what I've found is that doing articles, talking with people one-on-one, doing podcasts, I just can't get enough done. I can't help enough people. So just recently, I have set up 2 mastermind groups, one for business and entrepreneurs, founders, and one for dental practitioners to keep with my niche, to focus in on learning throughout the group. You can't do everything yourself. You can't have all experiences. You need to surround yourself by people that have experiences themselves and learn from those people as well, so that you don't make the same mistakes, so you can shorten the time frame from concept to delivery. And that's why I've set up the mastermind groups, is to give people the ability to be able to workshop amongst just an elite group of people that they can trust, that aren't competitive amongst each other, but can work together and have their own lessons from the trenches.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's the mastermind effect, right? It's been talked about a lot, having multiple heads as part of it. So important. And that's why I love events. I know we go to a lot of events, some of the similar events, and I do my own events, and you can do masterminds in so many different ways, whether it's, in online, in person, through groups, so many different methods. And I think it doesn't matter how you do it. It's just getting the people together, like you're talking about there, or how you curate it, to get, massive impact there. And one thing you mentioned there was about mistakes, right? And I think, you learn a lot more from the mistakes or the failures, right? From whether it's, other people ideally. So you hopefully don't make those mistakes, or you make less of them, because there's still always going to be certain levels of mistakes and failures, up and down journeys, as you talked about as well, Craig, with yourself. So let's talk about M&As now.
Hang on, I just wanted, before we get onto that, are you calling me a genius? Because I've made a lot of mistakes.
You've got it maybe a few more years on me as well. So, you've probably got a few more up your bag than what I have. I'm sure when I get a few more years on, we all make mistakes. I think, you know what I like to tell people about entrepreneurship? It's like, the movie Rocky, or all the Rocky movies. It's like, he keeps getting hit and he keeps getting back up, right? That's exactly what entrepreneurship is, right?
Yes, it is. Sorry, I interrupted you. M&As.
No, it's all good. It's I think, and that's what it is. I think, and that's why entrepreneurship, business ownership, is not for everybody, because are you willing to take the hits and the failures and the people saying you can't do something or whatever, and keep getting back up and keep moving?
And the loneliness.
And the what, sorry?
The loneliness as well.
Yep.
You're isolated, generally speaking, and people don't understand what's going on in your head. They don't understand the vision that you've got for 5 years down the track, 10 years down the track. There's a great deal of loneliness with it as well. So you have to be strong enough to go with that and push through it as well.
Yeah, and this is why the power you're talking about of your masterminds, right? Because if you can find people that are at a similar stage than you, or, at least entrepreneurs, whatever level they're at, then at least they think similarly. So you feel like you belong, whether they're your close friends or not. We have smaller circles generally. I think that's the power of it as well, right? Apart from the knowledge that you get. Yeah.
Spot on.
Yeah, definitely, mate. So powerful. So let's get into the mistakes now, right? Because I know you're doing a lot of M&A, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong. I've looked at a lot of deals, and I've seen red flags, and I've walked away, right, from them, because I don't want to, as Adam Coffey, that we've been to an event, talks about, don't buy a dog with fleas, right, in his saying there. So what are some of the mistakes that people make, right, that you're seeing in M&As, and how can we avoid them?
I think it all comes down to 3, so we'll make this quick, shall we? So the first one is the C-suite, the deal makers. Deal makers' egos are pretty much the major issue. What they do is they check out and they see, does this financially work? Is it strategic? Will it work strategically? Yes, it does. Excellent. Let's sign the piece of paper. They've checked out all the numbers. Everything makes sense. It all works. Well, the problem is that, normally speaking, a C-suite person will only do up to 2 M&As in their career. That's not enough experience. Therefore, they're going in blind pretty much. So unless you've got experienced M&A people actually doing that deal, rather than just standard C-suite, There's your first problem. So the second problem starts straight after that, and that's the integration side of things. Who is going to, the deal's been signed, we've got the piece of paper, but where are the results? How are we actually going to make all this happen? How are we going to bring all these projections alive and make them happen? Well, there has to be somebody that does that. But the problem is the people that have already signed the document haven't thought that far through. Therefore, the resources haven't been allocated. The plan needs to be put in place before the deal is signed. So it comes back to the C-suite there. Actually, the deal makers doing the deal need to have a plan for integration prepared. And you mentioned Adam Coffey. I think Adam Coffey is quite a proponent of that as well. You start on the implementation during due diligence. The final point of failure, and this is the biggest one, and this is, I would say, pretty much 100% of the time. And again, Adam Coffey talks about this all the time. This is all about people. It's about how are you going to deal with the people? How are you going to communicate with the people? What's their futures? How are you going to keep the people on board and come on the journey with you? Because with most M&As, they lose 20% of the workforce within the first 12 months. They lose 50% of the workforce within the first 3 years. Now, I can't speak for every country, but I know here in Australia, if you lose 20% of your workforce, you've got to pay super, you've got to pay retrenchment. It costs you a fortune to get rid of someone here in Australia. There goes all your profit. You've just lost all your profit. If you can cut that 20% down to, say, 5%, that is monstrous on your bottom line over the first 12 months. So they would be the three things: C-suite, integration, lack of integration planning, and people.
Amazing. I love it. Let's delve a little bit further into these, right? So we're talking about, obviously, the C-suite, the deal makers. So you're just going, listen, have the right partners, right? Like on your team, just making sure that you've got someone, whether it's yourself, Craig, or whoever, right, that knows what they're doing, because there's going to be things that you don't see, and you could be basically signing a bad deal, right? Is that's what it could be? Yeah.
Most often the person that's in charge of this is the head of finance. Now, if you're going to go on an acquisition, going to keep on acquiring businesses, then you need to lose your head of finance and replace them with someone that has been doing acquisitions for quite a long time. That is the best recommendation I can make, because if your leadership is going to be your blockage and veto all the great ideas and suggestions of people that have done this before, then that's a problem. So I say get rid of the head of finance and put in someone that knows what they're doing from an M&A perspective and got the runs on the board for acquisitions. They're going to cost you about $500K a year, $600K, $700K a year as an employee. They're going to cost you millions and millions and millions due to failures during the acquisitions. Get rid of them. Simple.
I love it. That's right. Get the right people on board, and
Yes.
Don't let the people that don't have the domain expertise, right, make
Yes.
decisions in that business. So let's talk a bit more about the integration one now, right? So you talked about people don't have the plan, right, and the resources and the implementation, right, starting on there. So what should we be thinking about in that process? And is this we're basically presenting this plan? Is that what's happening during this process? You
present it during the due diligence. You've got to present it internally during the due diligence. Now, there's two types of people that are required to do an M&A. First of all, you've got your existing people. we'll call them BAU, business as usual support staff. So you've got your BAU staff there. But again, you need a unique set of skills. Those people, they're great at following instructions and day-to-day stuff. And they're really good at that. And they've got a whole business to look after. They're not there as spare staff that are just sitting there twiddling their thumbs. They've got a real job to do. What you then need to do is you need to put together a team for integration, a specialist project team for integration. And these people have done integrations before. They know how to do it efficiently. They work with the BAU staff as well, and they work with the M&A project staff. So you have to budget for and have the plan for a special integrations group, because what people will do, most organizations will do, is they'll say, oh, this person in BAU, we'll allocate them 40% to the project, 30% to the project. Well, now they're at 130%, aren't they? It's just not going to work. I have seen a help desk supporting 10,000 people shut down for 2 days while I get some timekeeping devices out on the field. That's just wrong in every level.
Yeah, so true. And I think, this is why you got to think ahead and have someone like Craig, right? Is because going, okay, well, who are we bringing in, right, in this area here that's going to help us? And if you want certain people that's doing the BAU involved in that process, you need to be able to hire others to be able to support the BAU stuff, right?
Phil, yes.
Yeah, that's it. Whatever way it works, that you want to focus on it, because you do want some people there. And that comes into the people side, right, that you said last, because I think this is the biggest one, right? Because we can have the best systems in the world. We still need people. Even with AI coming in, we still need people to run the AIs or to run certain things physically, right? Especially for physical type businesses like dentists. There's no robots happening in the near future. So the, I guess there's a key one. You talked about losing people, right? And I think, yeah, the culture obviously that you bring. What are your thoughts? Because from my side, it's like, one area says, oh, you don't want to change too much, right, when you're doing it in a business. But then the other side says, well, maybe if we've got an amazing culture, we want to bring that in, right, into this business as well, because that's going to maybe help us to keep people at the same time. So what are your thoughts around, like, how much you change and how quickly you change it, and making sure that you can keep them sticky, right? Yeah, at those periods of time.
Athin, you've used two different words there. You've brought in the word culture. What a great thing to do, because you're spot on. You need to bring in the culture rather than just talk about it from a people perspective. You need to understand the existing culture and where the culture that you're trying to bring them to is. And what I see most often is they'll say the existing organization, they'll talk about the one that they're bringing on board as sort of them, and they'll use their old name, their old organization name. And I'll step in and say, no, we can't do that anymore, because that's isolating them. How are they going to feel? They're not going to feel a part of the group that way. So that's where the culture comes in. The first step is to change, to include them as part of the same name. Don't keep them isolated. The next thing is, and I think this is quite crucial as well as part of the due diligence, is you're going to have a hierarchy chart. You're going to see, oh, you're going to have these people. You're going to have and I'm going to say leftover people that no longer fit. Well, they no longer fit there, but what are the opportunities now? What are they interested in? You might have person A and person B and say, oh, arbitrarily, person B is left over because I've got person A. Well, maybe person A wants to move into a different role further in a different location, in a different part of the organization. You need to have the conversation with every single person to find out what their ambitions are, what what they hope for. Because if they're joining a bigger organization, well, they might travel 45 minutes to work. And yet, now that they're part of a large organization, there's a site just 5 minutes down the road from their home. There's an opportunity. So we need to be talking with every single person to find out what they want to get out of this. And there will be something that they can get out of it. We need to just ask them, but they don't get asked. Most often they don't, because they're only interested at getting the deal signed by the C-suite. And that's why I said 100% of this fails as a result of the people.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And I think that part that you just said there is like, it's the biggest gold, right? Because once you understand that and going, okay, it's like, this is any business, right? Like ongoing as well.
Absolutely.
You know, you should be having these conversations because people leave because of bad management, bad leaders, right? Or, you know, the culture and things like that. It's not normally because of money and things. And as long as you're making them feel heard and ideally there's a plan for their growth, they're going to stay, right? A lot of the time.
Absolutely. I see in the background there that you've got the Sydney Harbour. Now, I was working 70 hours a week or something. This was back in my second job. And I was going out with this girl. Along came the Christmas party. And my girlfriend, I said, we'll be there. They said, oh, no, you can't take your girlfriend with you. We were going out on the bay here in Melbourne. And, oh, no, she's not invited. It's just employees and partners. Well, how did that make me feel? Obviously, I didn't go, but how did that make me feel? It's about, you've always got to be looking at your staff, talking with your staff and understanding them. As you said, staff leave because of the lack of leadership.
Yeah. And now, like I've at the time of this, I've got, you know, basically a 9-month-old child, right? And now I'm understanding more from the family perspective and the children perspective, right? Of how that changes the dynamic depending on, you know, if it's the mother, father, you know, or whatever that is. It's not just the partner element, like you talked about there, but then there's that family element as well, and understanding, well, you know, what that brings. So is there times for partners and is there times for families, right? In terms of what you're doing to build that culture, you know, in the business as well. Really powerful.
It is. Now, you mentioned AI before. AI has a huge part in all of this because we've spoken of systems and processes, one of the key things is with M&As is the business ready to grow? Are they ready to expand and take on an acquisition or not? Quite often the answer is no, because they don't have the systems and processes in place. So I did a job for one organisation and it took them 3 weeks to create 15 printer queues. Now, that was because their staff didn't know how to create them. We couldn't actually migrate people across to get paid because they didn't know how their payroll system worked and how it worked with their credit card system. If we don't have the documentation of how things are, how they work, processes, systems fully documented, you can't implement AI because all you're going to do is make mistakes 10 times faster. So you go from not being very good to being absolutely insanely wrong with what you're implementing. And this has a big effect on M&As as well. Know your business, document your business before you start on the acquisitions. Things will go much, much smoother and be far more efficient. You'll save a lot of money. So that's sort of going back onto the integration side of things there. But AI is going to be a driver in that respect now, because people are going to understand. And I've looked at your history, by the way. I've seen that you've been a business analyst in the past as well, Athin. So you know exactly what I'm talking about here. If you don't have those models and those processes documented, forget about AI. You're just not ready, which is a great shame, by the way.
Yeah, definitely, man. So true. I love that comment about AI. It's you only get in or get out what you put in, right? So how good you have things documented and how good you can program the AI is only how good it's going to be. Not just the standard chat GPT, right? That people are doing. It's what is it tailored to your business, because then you can get real powerful outcomes and you can automate a lot of things. And it's not about replacing everyone in the business either. It's about making them a lot more efficient, right? Because then you could double, quadruple the capacity, right, of everybody. And then what does that do to your business from there?
Well, if I go back to these printers, these 15 printers, the question is, do they want a program manager like myself standing over them every day, coming and asking them horrible questions, or do they just want it to happen like that? It's not about replacing people. It's about making their lives better. I can assure you, they did not want me standing over them every single day. Get me my printers. Simple request. Just create them. But they didn't know how. Businesses need to keep document everything that they do. And it doesn't matter how small that thing is. The smaller the thing is that they do, the quicker it is to document. The quicker it is to document, the more AI can replace that. Do they really want to be doing these mundane tasks? No. They want to be doing the interesting stuff, the fulfilling stuff, not the boring stuff that AI can do for you. Because if a stupid computer can do it for you, it's not going to be of interest to you, is it? You're a human being.
Yeah, definitely. So powerful, mate. Looking forward to how, AI is going so quickly and business generally, and then obviously to supercharge the M&A and roll up process. So powerful. And I guess as we're starting to wrap up here today, Craig, I'll ask you one further thing, and that's one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
I think I would have to go with, you can't do it yourself. Surround yourself by not just a team, but people that are actually doing it. That would be the one piece of advice. You can't do it yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Athin. What do you do? That's exactly what you do, isn't it? Who would have thought?
That's it. As to you, right? If you want to get into someone around you that's doing it with the M&A space, right, and all of that, Craig's the man, right, and business growth, everything like that, right, as well. In my ways, doing it as well, right, and I'm doing it outside of the business as well, business, right. I think that's the important thing too. It's like, what are you actually doing? And Craig talked about multiple different businesses and things that he's doing there, right? It's like, the people that are actually doing it, get them to help you. Because AI can only do so much. People think, oh, I can just ask AI the question, I'll give it to you. I don't have the experience, don't have the wisdom, how to make those movements at different times. Makes a massive difference, right? In that area there. So so true, mate. Love that. And we connected, through our networks, learned about your awesome journey from having 25 years of M&A and integrations across health and manufacturing, and to now doing obviously two $1 billion M&As as well. So you've got the runs on the board, mate, there, and you're an awesome guy, so knowledgeable. You shared so much gold, with us here today, and I'm sure you continue to solve people's problems, massively reduce their expenses, and make them millions of dollars. Very grateful that we connected, being on your podcast, being able to have you on my podcast, and look forward to partnering with you in the future as well. So Craig, how can people find you, get in contact with you?
Honestly, the best way is through LinkedIn. Or you can just search for Craig Keegan on the internet, and you'll either get me or a Tasmanian hockey player. But LinkedIn's the best way to go.
Love it.
I'm
Awesome.
pretty easy to find.
Yeah. Well, definitely check out Craig there. Get him on LinkedIn. That's where he's the most prevalent. And yeah, don't stick away from the hockey unless you like hockey. But find Craig, Google him, see he's everywhere at the moment doing his thing. Mate, it's been a pleasure interviewing you, and thanks for being on the Business Growth Show.
Thank you for making it easy and molding me in this conversation today, Athin.
Thank you for watching and listening to the Business Growth Show, where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Athin Cassiotis, or visit my website, athincassiotis.com. And if you want to grow and scale your business, you'd reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. So until next time, remember that our business grows where we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So let's create wealth and freedom together.